Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Chat EbT. I'm your host, Mohammed Ibrahim Tayyab. Now, on our last episode, we started the conversation with Sarah Hoffman from Clicked, and we are continuing that discussion right now. So, Sarah, thank you once again for sticking around and carrying on this discussion with us.
Great to be here.
Now, towards the end of our last episode, I think you mentioned something so important, is that, if there is that need for parents to take that important phone call or address that email, it's so important to actually voice that out loud as opposed to just switching off and doing that. Saying, I'm really sorry, can I just take this call, or I need 5 minutes to just, sort out this work issue. We hear about communication all the time from in the workplace and how important that is, to have that open communication with your boss or with your subordinates or people that you're working with. But I think we just don't apply that same sort of importance to communication with our children. And I love the way you said that, is just, kind of saying that, I need the couple of minutes. Where do you think parents are falling short in terms of the communicating to our children?
I think in this space that there's so much emotion around screens, and it's such a place of friction in the home, and it causes, we often just, all the conversations around screens are a power struggle.
Yes.
Right? Can I have more time? Why won't you let me? The strictest parent in the world, I get that too. Mm-hmm. It's not easy being the child of a digital safety expert, so I'm not very popular with it. But the truth is, we need to almost normalize discussions around screens and technology. And, I always say it's not one conversation we have with our children, it's hundreds of conversations all the time that are, firstly because the space is changing all the time. There are developments that are happening all the time. There are new TikTok trends and challenges, whether your child is online or not, that are filtering their way into the playground. Parents often say, how on earth does my child know this TikTok dance? They've never seen TikTok, but they have their way of, entering the zeitgeist, and your little grade 2 child will come home knowing something from TikTok, and that's just the world we live in. So I think what we need to get in the practice of, as early as possible, is to be curious and not judgmental about our children's online world, and to have ongoing conversations that just open up the door for conversations. We don't need to sit and have a lecture and the talk and tell them, read them the right act. Sometimes that is appropriate. But from a very young age, be curious and not condescending about, tell me about that show you're watching. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Tell me about the dad in that show. Tell me about this game you're playing. What's fun about it? How does it work? You don't have to sit and play for hours and hours and hours. I mean, if you do, that's kudos to you. But really just to start off by being curious and not judgmental, because what we want to set up, Mohammed, is that when something does go wrong, whether it's your child coming across explicit content, or another child showing your child pornographic content, or when we look at things going much worse, someone, God forbid, making a deep fake nude image of your child and it going around the grade. Yeah. These things are happening all the time. Yeah. Or someone making a terrible racist meme of your child, whatever it may be. We want our children to know that they can land safely and softly with us. We want them to know that they can come to us and that we're not going to flip our lids, that we're going to deal with it. We're going to say, thank you for telling me. And and not to say that there won't be consequences. If your child did something they shouldn't have been doing, there should be consequences. But that the first thing we're going to say when they tell us is, thank you for telling me. And let's deal with this, and consequences after. But I think there's so much hysteria around the space, and there's so much power struggle around these conversations, that most kids feel that if they do mess up, or they do go against the rules, or they do watch something they knew they shouldn't have, or they do download something they shouldn't have downloaded, or whatever it may be, they push it underground because they are terrified that there's going to be hysteria, and they're even more terrified that the device is going to get taken away, which is, the end of days if you're a teen or a tween. So what we really need to build the practice early, even if you have a little child, is being curious, asking questions. And that's what at Clicked we really focus on doing it. So through our school program, every single week, parents on our school program get a weekly WhatsApp about, it might be a new app about a new risk, a new TikTok challenge, a new AI platform, a new AI therapist the kids are talking to, and we script out for parents how to actually have this conversation in a way that's not judgmental. So I heard about this new AI platform. Have you heard about it? Not just tell me, are you talking to an AI therapist? That's ridiculous. We're going to be curious and not judgmental. And even, I think fake it till you make it sometimes. Because some of the stuff our kids do really does make us want to cry and roll around and lie in a dark room. But if we respond that way, they're not going to come to us when they really need to. And that's what we want to set up.
That's a really good point. And, this is something, in all honesty, I've fallen a bit short on. Like, the one thing I absolutely find infuriating is these kids watching YouTube videos of other people playing games or unboxing things. And I find it like, this is just so pointless that you're watching this. But to what you just said, I don't think I've ever sat down and said, okay, why do you guys find this interesting? And have that conversation. And I think that's actually, honestly, that's quite a big eye-opener, because I think we kind of always go with what we think is great content. No, you shouldn't be watching. This is junk. Why are you watching this? But I don't think we ask those questions. And I think that's that first step. I really like what you said, is that we want our kids to be able to come to us and say, you know what, I saw something that I don't fully understand, or that scared me, or that I think is wrong. Please, can you talk to me about it? But I think if we always just going with, why are you watching this junk? That conversation is never going to happen.
It shuts down.
Yeah.
So we want to keep opening that door. But I'm glad you mentioned viewing videos on platforms like YouTube, because I think that's a really important one for parents. And I think what sometimes parents don't understand about that platform is just how powerful that algorithm is.
Yeah.
So if any of the viewers were watching what went on in LA a month or so ago, all the big executives of YouTube, Meta, TikTok, Snap were in court in LA. It was called the social media addiction trial. And there was a girl who was 6 when she started watching YouTube, and 9 when she started TikTok, and she was showing how exposure to those platforms was directly responsible for her mental health decline and body dysmorphia and various mental health challenges she had. And what the lawyers were showing was that by design, these platforms are intended to addict children. And what was fascinating about this court case was, in the process of this court case, which went on for weeks, all the internal research documents from the companies like Meta and YouTube came out. And this is not external research companies. Their own people were coming forward and saying, this is highly addictive. Look at what this is doing. And the executives, Mark Zuckerberg, the executives of all these companies turned a blind eye, because at the end of the day, these are multi-billion-dollar companies, and their priority is engagement and not child safety. They are not sitting thinking, how can I get little Johnny to meditate more and play more soccer outside? They don't care about that. There's one interview with someone who used to work at YouTube where he said explicitly, our goal is to get children to watch for 10 hours a day. That's what they want. They are not concerned about children's well-being. The only time they make any changes is when there is a big lawsuit. Then they'll go and change a few safety settings and carry on doing exactly what they were doing. So we have to understand that our children's brains, which are currently, in a period of important development, are being outmatched by an algorithm far more powerful than them. That is designed to hook them in, that is designed to release dopamine, that is designed to keep them coming back for more and more and more and more. And, it's a kind of a losing battle for our kids.
I actually read an article once where they said that the same techniques that were used in developing slot machines were used in creating these algorithms, in the sense that, similar to casinos, right? Their goal is to keep you at the machine or at the table. They not concerned about the fact that you might be using your kids' college fund money, or you might be broke. That's not their concern. Similarly to how he's saying, these platforms are to keep you there, and not really, is your mental health being affected?
Not
is
at
your
all.
growth
It's
being
the
affected?
attention economy, really. And they use a concept called intermittent variable reward. So it keeps you coming back. It's not, especially with video game designers, for example. They now, I don't know if you played video games as a kid, but
I do till today, unfortunately. But
you could lose some games. Now, the games are really designed, they're not too easy that you get bored and give up. and they're not too hard that you just give up because you don't feel a sense of mastery. They have absolutely mastered the art of that intermittent variable reward. You just get that dopamine hit, and it's challenging enough that keeps you coming back for more and more and more and more. And dopamine hit, little dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit. And what we don't always understand about dopamine is that we start to need more dopamine to feel less of a thrill. So in the beginning, when we start playing a video game or watching YouTube, we feel amazing, it's very exciting. Then we need 3 more videos to get that same level of excitement. Then we need 7 more videos. Next thing, it's 3 hours.
Yeah. You mentioned on one of your reels, actually, now that you're mentioning that, you mentioned on one of your reels recently that you guys did a survey. And one of the biggest parents' concerns around the fact of children's independence. They can't really do anything on their own anymore. Where before, kids would play in, with their Legos, you mentioned, for hours and hours, and you had to actually be concerned, hey, where's my kid, or what's my kid doing? But I think now it's very, and I think this ties back to the dopamine that you were mentioning. It's very, hey mom, hey dad, come see what I'm doing here, come see what I'm doing there. When they're not on their devices, they need that constant involvement from somebody else to probably get that dopamine, but also I think they just haven't developed those skills of having that independence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple of things. I think that we are in this culture of, there's so much more content around parenting, and I think sometimes we do overparent. And I think that in contrast to trying to perhaps reduce how much screens and short form video particularly is taking part of their life, we actually need to, and it feels counterintuitive, but we need to let them get that sense of independence and play independently in the real world. And we tend to over-supervise and helicopter parent, but it is so beneficial for kids to make mistakes and learn and figure things out on their own.
I actually put out a poll to have some of the fans send in some questions, and I'd like to read a few out to you today and get some insight, if you don't mind. The first one: how can parents enforce boundaries without causing conflicts or rebellious behavior?
So I think it really talks to what we spoke about earlier, is we have to get in the habit of having consistent, curious, not judgmental conversations around their online space, and putting in a contract. Doesn't have to be our contract, there's a lot, but putting in our expectations in a way that is not hysterical, that is not in the power struggle, that simply, this is how we're going to use the device from now on. These are my expectations. And if your child is not able to stick to that part of the deal, not getting hysterical, it's simply, we agreed to X, you weren't able to do that, you're showing me that you're not ready for this, and we're going to take it away for a while and try again. So we actually do have, if you go onto the Collect website, something called our First Device Workshop, where we actually take parents through, it's a pre-recorded workshop, you can watch or listen in your own time, and we take parents through step by step, how to actually put those boundaries in place in ways that feel manageable and palatable. But it really is all about lowering the volume and the hysteria around the space, around having constant conversations. And if you as a parent are sitting watching this saying, it's too late, my child watches YouTube all day long, they've got their own phone, it's not too late. You can go and say to them, listen, my sweetie pie, I watched this really interesting segment, and I think we need to relook at how we're doing technology at home. Let's sit down and work out what works best for our family, what's good for you, what isn't, and go to our website, download our contract, look through the guidelines, and really, it's almost like a tech reset for the family.
Yeah. Our next question, with regards to social media, how can parents monitor it without invading privacy, specifically with regards to teenagers?
So I think, we get asked this question all the time. Can I check my child's phone? And the answer is, at Clicked, Pam, my business partner, and I always say, you have to check your child's phone. If you want privacy, a diary with a lock and a key you can have on your bed, and you can absolutely guarantee your child that you will not look at that. But the place to have privacy is not on a device that has high-speed internet, contact with strangers, and access to an international permanent platform. Until your child has absolutely demonstrated that they are completely responsible and know exactly what the risks are, and have really demonstrated for a period of time that they are competent, we fundamentally believe that a parent needs to check a child's device from time to time. And that needs to be part of the conditions and rules for having a device. In the same way that we spoke about in the first episode, water safety. You're not going to let your child loose in the ocean with no supervision until one day that you're absolutely 100% sure that they are 100% water safe, a strong swimmer. We've got to follow the same approach when it comes to devices. And so certainly when your child first gets a device, part of the conditions is to check from time to time. And there obviously are different technologies and apps you can use to help you along the way. But even if it's just simply saying, I will be checking your WhatsApp groups every few nights, whatever it may be, I believe it's a parent's duty to do that.
No, 100%. Are parental controls effective? And can you share some good ones?
Sure. So parental controls can be effective up to a point. There definitely is a place for them, but they absolutely are not a catch-all. There is no set it and forget it. We can't just use one app and think, I've done what I need to do. I was on a webinar to parents last week, and I was explaining why we have a whole education program for kids and parents, and he said, but I have Apple screen time, so why do I need to do this? And the truth of the matter is that kids will always outsmart us when it comes to technology. There is not one parental control that will solve everything, that is absolutely watertight. There's not one parental control. If you, for example, go and Google right now how to override Apple screen time, there are thousands of videos made by teenagers and TikToks made by teenagers all over the world that have all sorts of crafty hacks of how to get around them. If you set your device downtime, which is one of the things you can do on Apple screen time, to just say 8 p.m., you make the device shut down at 8 p.m. every single night because you think that's fair, they go and change the time zone. Suddenly you're living in New Zealand, or they'll change the facial recognition, or they'll put apps behind a calculator. There's a whole lot of apps called Vault apps, which might look like something else, and behind them are hidden a different app. So one of them is a calculator. It looks like a calculator. Behind it, you can hide other apps that you're technically not allowed. So our kids are much craftier than us when it comes to all of this. They are digital natives. We are not. And they will always outsmart us when it comes to technology. So I'm not saying don't use parental controls, and happy to recommend some that are moderately or highly effective, but they're not the only thing as parents we need to do. I always say to parents, the strongest, the best parental control on the market is connected and engaged parents. Parents that can have conversations like we've been speaking about. Parents that are able to put boundaries in place when it comes to technology, even if you're far down the line and you need to backtrack a little bit. Parents that can check in with their children. Parents that are comfortable enough to say, I'm sorry, I have to check your device. And parents that can keep the conversation going, even when it feels uncomfortable. That is really the best line of defense, because at the end of the day, as we said, we want our kids to come and talk to us when things go wrong.
Oh, very true. How do we balance the need to teach kids how to use devices, but also be responsible about it?
I think, when we talk about, so a lot of parents say, oh, I'm so worried my child's going to be left behind. Don't worry about that. I'm here to tell you don't need to worry about that. These kids are digital natives. They pick up things very, very quickly. They're born in a fast-paced digital world, and I do think that in a school environment, they are getting subjects like coding. We don't need to worry about them not having digital skills if we are choosing as parents to delay device exposure. But I think what parents really need to also appreciate is when we do allow access to a device, it's not an all or nothing approach. When we talk about a first device, parents don't think about what version of that device is that going to be. The first device does not have to be unlimited access, unlimited downloads, no screen time limits. We can start small and build up. And back to the swimming analogy, once your child has demonstrated that they can stick to the rules, that they are able to come off the device, that they're not losing the device, that they're sticking to the rules, whatever you've agreed to, maybe we can add another app. And so on our first device, workshop, which is available on the Clicked website, we talk about ways that we can give our child the first device that are not all or nothing. So we recommend things, for example, like no more than 3 apps at a time. It's very overstimulating for children, and again, doesn't help the fragmented attention to toggle between app and app and app and app and app. If you want a new app, which one are we deleting? And in the same way, when your child first gets a platform like WhatsApp, for example, start slow. First, we're going to not have any groups. Just talk to your friends. Maybe then we'll add one group. Groups add a whole lot of other dynamics and problems for parents.
Definitely.
So I think that parents really need to think that it's not all or nothing. And there is a platform that I really like, especially for younger kids, called Mint Kids, which really allows you to highly limit what is accessible on a device, especially for younger kids. So you can set the device to only have 3 apps, no browser, and that's it. So it's really, we don't have to think about the whole internet or nothing at all. We can start slow and build up as we go, and as our children demonstrate competence and the ability to stick to the rules we've put in place.
This one, I actually really love this question, and it ties a little bit to what we were talking about. How can we teach children to self-regulate instead of relying on parental controls?
I think it really all comes back to in real world skills, because I think a lot of parents are using, and kids are using screens to self-soothe, to self-regulate. I'm having a bad day, please can I just video game? I'm feeling bored, can I watch TV? I had a fight with my friend, can't I just scroll? And it is that sort of mind-numbing escapism that adults also use. But at the end of the day, we have to go back to the question we asked in the first episode. What is the screen displacing? Is my child getting enough practice pushing through something hard in the real world that they can manage to do that without being reliant on a screen to do that? And we also see that worry creeping up even more now with kids using AI chatbots instead of speaking to parents, instead of speaking to school social workers. 72% of teens use an AI companion now. That's the most recent research. And they're using an AI companion for anything from how to answer my history essay to how to ask a girl out on a date, to help me figure out how to talk to my best friend about this hard thing, to questions about sex, and the list goes on. So we really need to make sure that our kids are building the social emotional learning skills offline before they are using a screen to help them regulate.
And I think one of the important things to touch on there is, and I spoke to this with a previous guest, is one of the drawbacks of AI is that it's never really telling you no. Whatever thing you put into it, it's always, that's a great idea, let me help you sort that out. And it's never really like, okay, maybe you need to take a pause and consider something else. And I think that's something that's always a big concern there, is because, you and I spoke about it a little bit before our chat, is that, there's been cases of AI that's helped people commit suicide, because it's always that, oh wow, that's a great idea, let me help you get the tools for that. And I think that's always a big concern, is that going back to the skills aspect, they're not really realizing when something is not to be done. You mentioned I can ask AI how to ask a girl out, but it's similar. You could probably ask AI how to bully someone, and it will go, oh, that's a phenomenal idea. How about we explore that?
A lot of these AI chatbots are what we call sycophantic. They're just telling you more and more, and ChatGPT is notorious for this, telling you more and more of what you want to be hearing and agreeing with you and telling you everything's a great idea. I mean, if I had to look through my ChatGPT records and see how many times I was told that's a great idea, and kids haven't yet built that skill of discernment. So before they are let loose on a tool like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it may be, and there'll be a new one by the time we finish speaking today, guaranteed, they need to understand how to use a skill, how and when to use a skill. They need to know that AI can hallucinate. They need to know that when I'm Googling something and now the first hit that comes up is the AI overview, that is often incorrect. So our AI curriculum in our school program teaches kids like what is a good prompt, what is a bad prompt, how to know if AI is hallucinating, how to tell if an image is a deep fake image. It's becoming harder and harder to tell. How do I use AI in a way that still allows me to develop critical thinking skills? So all of these are skills that really need to be taught before we are just diving head on first into this new technology that is largely unregulated.
Sarah, before we end, this is a question I actually asked to all the guests. And it's, what message would you like people to take away from our interview today?
I think the main message is that it's not too late, and it's not your fault as parents. If you are sitting watching this as a parent thinking, gosh, I have messed up, it's too late, I've got a little screen addict. Firstly, you're not alone. Secondly, it's not your fault. These devices are designed to do exactly that. I mean, and this has now been really well proven. Mm-hmm. And I think the world is changing now. So I don't want parents to come away from this feeling doom and gloom and despair and it's too late and I've messed up. It's not your fault. It's not too late. You haven't messed up. And we can change things. And we can shift the trajectory of how our children are developing now. So I think that's really would be my message to parents.
And you mentioned a few of the programs or webinars that you guys have at Click. How can parents access these or become a little bit more involved?
Sure, I think the best thing is just pop onto our website, follow us on social media. On Instagram, we clicked SA, KLIKD. Our website also has lots of information and free resources for parents. We have a mailing list you can sign up to, but definitely follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. That's a great way of keeping on top of what we're up to.
Oh, brilliant. Sarah, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'm so glad that you put that last message is it's not too late, because in all honesty, a lot of times I've been that parent that felt that maybe it was too far gone. So it's glad to know that there's steps that we can take even at this stage to sort of improve this sort of pathway. So thank you so much for being with us and sharing. I think you guys are doing absolutely phenomenal work, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks, Mohammed.
In continuing
Thanks for having
this journey.
me.
No, it's our pleasure. All right, that's our show. I'm pretty much just going to reiterate what Sarah just said there. To all the parents out there who think things are gone a little bit too far, it's never too late. There is ways, there is techniques. Hop onto the website, check out some of the webinars and some of the free downloadables there. And yeah, like I said, it's never too late. My name is Mohammed Ibrahim Tayyab. You're watching Chat EBT. Until next time.